Hi, and welcome to the Mason Miller Show. We got another special edition for you today. I'm Clay Miller, setting in for Mason while he's out. Today, we're joined with a guest, Kari Kingston. She is a lifelong resident here of Shelbyville, Shelby County, and she's the current circuit clerk for Shelby County and is also the candidate running for re-election. So, Kari, welcome. Thanks for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. So, circuit clerk, just jump right into it and tell me a little bit. I know we've known each other forever. I've known you've always worked at the courthouse. Like I said, lifelong resident of Shelbyville. Tell us how you became circuit clerk. What did you do before that? And then kind of how you got into the position that you're in now.
Well, I straight out of high school. I started in that office when I was 22 years old. So I had heard of an opening, and I knew that it was like a bookkeeper. Mm-hmm. And that's what I went to school for. So I put my resume in and I got hired. So I started there in April of 97.
Into the circuit clerk's office?
So yeah, I was initially the bookkeeper.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to school at Lakeland and at Eastern.
Okay. So then right after that, you jumped in as part of the circuit clerk office staff. Who was circuit clerk then?
Cheryl Rowley was the circuit clerk then.
Okay. So So you worked for Cheryl Rowley for how many years?
I worked for Cheryl. She retired in 2006, and she appointed Susan Arthur, who worked in the office with me also. Susan retired in 2020, and that's when I ran.
Okay. Was Bob Hayden?
He was before Cheryl.
Okay. Because
He
Bob
started
Hayden,
in 72.
Yeah, so. I was going to say,
yeah.
All of us growing up forever, seems like he was a legend up there.
Yeah, he was 72 to 1992. And so then Cheryl got 92 to 06.
That's a good run.
So, yeah.
So you started out, how many different positions? Did you rotate through different positions, or is it just...
The thing with our office, a lot of the bigger circuit clerks, they have departments. Mm-hmm. I have a cousin that works in Macon. I have two cousins that work in Macon County. They deal with traffic, so they don't know anything about any other kind of case but traffic. My office is small enough. You have to know everything, criminal, civil, child support, everything. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's a real learning curve. Like, you can't leave somebody alone in my office for like up to a year. I would say a good solid 8 months, you don't leave a new employee by themselves because there's just too much to know. So I started out as the bookkeeper, and that's what I did, but we have to basically know how to do everything. Mm-hmm. You have people, at that time we didn't do electronic filing, so you have attorneys coming in to file cases, file into existing cases. You also have criminals coming in to pay their fines, and you have people coming in to pay child support. So, I mean, it's just anything to do with court we deal with.
Okay. So, what's the number of staff that you actually have?
So, circuit clerk and 4 deputy clerks is what we've always had.
Okay.
So, it's not a huge office. And you usually almost always have one person is in court. When we have jury trials, you're going to have 2 clerks in court because you're going to have 2 courtrooms going. So, I mean, that leaves pretty bare bones in the office.
Mm-hmm. Right. So you mentioned you came up under Cheryl. Mm-hmm. Cheryl retired, and then you said it was Susan after that. Mm-hmm. And then what year did you say you took over?
Susan ran in 16, so when she was done, she retired at the end of that term. So I ran in 2020.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about just the day-to-day. What exactly your office does? I know you said you'll be in court, but days you don't have court, things like that. Like, what is it day to day, week to week, if there is an average one? What's it like?
We have court every day. So we have criminal court 3 times a week. That's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We have civil court 2 times a week. So usually when you come in, now that we have electronic payments, you have to check with the bank. You have to process the electronic payments. Now we have electronic filing. So you have to get on that website. Attorneys, and we've had attorneys who are up at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning filing things. Mm-hmm. And they're in our queue when we get there in the morning. You got to go through and process all of that. You've got to process it from the website, and then you have to process it through our software. So it's almost like a double. You have to make sure it's done correctly.
Right.
Accept it. So and then you've got the telephone calls. When do I have court? Also, so I mean, you're constantly. It's never a boring job. Mm-hmm. You're always got something to do. It's never slow.
What about turnover in your office? What kind of tenure do you have there?
I started in 97. My next clerk started in 99. I had a clerk that started in 07. and then I have 21 and one that just started in May.
Wow. So a lot of experience there, which is nice, but then also having one, some different fresh blood coming in occasionally too is good.
Yeah, younger, they have more experience with technology than
some
of us older ones. So
yeah. Well, plus you don't have everybody all retire at once in 10 years or 15 years or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. In 97, I was the new employee, and by 99, I was the second highest in seniority because
everybody turned over at the same generation.
Yep.
Yeah. That's good. So what's it like? What's the difference between all those years, those decades that you were getting all this experience working under a circuit clerk versus being the main person in there, the actual circuit clerk?
I was, when I started, since I was the youngest person, I was the unself-appointed IT person. So anytime anything went wrong with the computer, it was like thrown in my lap.
Mm-hmm.
So I had started a connection with our software people, and they're from Carbondale. So it's just like that's kind of become my self-appointed.
You're the software guru, whether you want to be or not.
Whether I want to be or not, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, if it's broken, just call Kari. And I might not know, but I know who to call to find out. So.
Yeah. Tell me about the changes how you've seen the office evolve technologically from, like you said, it used to be paper filings to how it functions now.
All paper. You would have attorneys come in, you'd go to the post office and pick up the mail, and you'd have tons of mail. Now there's none, because in 2018, the Supreme Court mandated that all civil filings had to be done electronically. Mm-hmm. So we had to start taking it electronically. Then we've it's not been mandated that criminal filings, but I think now that everybody's learned how to do the civil filings, all the attorneys have, they realize it's easier than trying to get envelopes ready and mail it and pay it. So they've just started to do the criminal. So almost all of our filing is electronic. It's very, very rare that we have any criminal or civil that they actually bring in to file, what we call over the counter.
So you said it's mandatory that they have to be electronically filed. Is there a certain, and maybe there isn't, I don't know, but is there a certain mandate or level from either the state or the federal level that each office has to have, like a certain software or a certain, okay.
So that was a big to do in 2018. There were several different companies that were trying to win the right of having the electronic filing. And apparently the state felt that it was taking too long for them to decide, so they just pulled the trigger and picked one. So Tyler Technologies is who we have as Odyssey File and Serve, and that's who we have to use for our e-filing.
Okay. So
it's one company.
Yeah. Well, I know in my field, you lose track of time. It seems like it's 5 years ago. It was probably 15 years ago when every medical office moved to electronic medical records. Mm-hmm. Gone are the days where you go in and a doctor writes in a chart. They're all typing now, and they have been for a decade and a half. But that was monumental. And I'm sure what you guys did too was the same.
Our judges, we had a lot of judges who did not adapt to the electronic, and we still have some that are like.
Yeah, there were a lot of doctors that retired. They were just like retired 3 or 4 years early because I'm not doing it.
And I feel like that we had judges who probably would have stayed longer had this not been mandated.
Yeah, probably. It's kind of interesting though, because once you do it and make that transition, you can't really remember life before it.
Right.
I mean, it's just it is the way it is. So with that, how much more efficient do you think your office is now? And then is there anything you think needs to be improved upon to make it, better?
I feel like it's made it a lot more efficient. An attorney can file. They don't have to worry about sending somebody to the courthouse to get it filed in time. And there's a lot of statute of limitation issues that they don't have to worry about now, because they can, as long as it's electronically filed, it gets a stamp when they upload it. So it's not like the last minute rush. I think it's helped a lot. Mm-hmm. People can make the electronic payments by debit card, credit card. They're not trying to find a ride there. They don't have a car. They don't have a driver's license. So they don't have to worry about trying to find secure transportation to get their fine paid in time for court. They can pay it online.
Less excuses.
Or you can stick it in the mail, and there's times that it gets lost in the mail.
Right.
So, and that's, And now we have, what's really great is you can do court by Zoom. So when people can't get a ride, they can hop on Zoom. Or when it's not snowing here, but where they live, it might be horrible, they can hop on Zoom. So it saves a lot of failures to appear. It saves a lot of needless warrants that don't really need to be issued. So, and we have also with the electronic payments, in the last year, we've gotten an app. So like my office has an app. So anybody can download it. They can pay their fine on it. They can check their court date. They can get on Zoom, all from that app. And we send out reminders, like push notifications. And we're also in the process of starting where I can send out text messages. So if you provide your cell phone number to my office, and the day before court, I can send out push text notifications to notify everyone that they've got court, to remind them of court tomorrow.
Yeah.
So
that everybody show up, so you don't have to push those dates.
Right.
Kind of like the dentist.
Yes.
I get those from the dentist now.
And
that's really handy.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're looking at doing. So we've started that just in the last couple weeks.
So, technologically it's changed a lot. It's evolved. And, again, you seem to be on the forefront of that. Tell me a little bit about just the overall kind of the things you wouldn't see in the job description that you've learned over time, the relationships and how you navigate to make sure that office functions at a high level, and to know who to reach out to, that kind of stuff. The soft skills that you learn only by being there.
That
for a
is
couple
just
decades.
trial and error. And when you're trying to find an answer and you've made calls and you've spent hours trying to find somebody with the answer that you're looking for, after you've done that a time or two, you start realizing, I keep getting referred to the same person. I'm going to make sure I have her number or his number in my contact and keep it handy. So it's just things that you wouldn't know unless you've been down that road a time or two or three or four.
Right. And then a little bit about the circuit clerk is a little bit different from the others as far as you still report to the county board, right? But
yeah, I'm still a county official, but I'm actually I'm part of the state judiciary branch.
Okay, which does make it a little bit of more of a unique position as far as
it does.
Some of the others that are completely county
driven.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the paycheck still is the same, but I feel like I answer more to my circuit judge, my chief judge of my circuit, and the administrative office of the Illinois courts. They're the ones who provide the guidelines that I have to follow. When I really have any questions, it's that office that I'm going to call to reach out to try to find, or other circuit clerks to find out, hey, what do I need to do here? This is something that I've never seen. So the AOIC is where you normally start out at. Okay. And it helps. One of the ladies that I have in contact, she was a circuit clerk in Moultrie County. Cheryl was her mentor when she first got elected. So I've known her for 27 years.
Yeah.
So if I ever have a question, I'm like, I'm gonna hit her up.
It's a branch of the family, right?
Right.
So, you might not know this. I don't even know. Was Cheryl working in that office before she became circuit clerk, or was she?
No, Cheryl actually worked at a bank.
Okay. So that was her background of being able to come in and do it.
Right.
So I was wondering how many people in that office were held over from
all of
Hayden.
them.
Did they really?
Yeah.
They all stayed when she came?
Yeah, they all did.
Oh, that had to be a lifesaver for her.
It actually was. Yeah. It was, at that time, it was Diane Noren, Susan, Dorothy Wooters, and Nancy Hudson, which was Bob Hayden's sister.
Right.
So they were the four that were. I took Dorothy's position when she retired.
Interesting. Yeah, I used to ride in the backseat of ball games with Dorothy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can remember those days being a little kid. Again, we all grew up with Bob Hayden and then Barney Melvin and all those guys that worked at the courthouse forever when we were little.
And Barney and my dad were really good friends.
Yeah.
So
I think
he was at my house.
Barney was good friends with anybody that used to go to Guys.
Right.
For the 70s.
And him and my dad, they fished. They talked fishing. So that was...
Barney was a big-time fisherman. Even when he was still out at Hollybrook, he would go out there and fish.
Right.
So.
And Zach actually told me my dad had made him a bucket that you take that has all your stuff in it, and you sit on it for fishing. And after Barney passed away, Zach has it.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, those were the good old days, I guess. Yeah. So the interesting part about that is you can see how having not just the circuit clerk, but maybe even as important, and sometimes more important, keeping that staff all together and transitioning from one to the next and them feeling comfortable. Because, like you said, the learning curve would be monumental.
Yeah, I could not imagine. I remember coming home for my first day, and my mom had asked me like, how'd it go? And I'm like, I am never going to learn all that stuff. There's no way I'm going to learn all that. I was so overwhelmed.
Right, but knowing those gals, they probably took you in and made you feel not as terrified and all that. But yeah. So now you're doing that to people when you bring them in and your staff.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you talking about it because, again, I think it's something we know is up there, but, you don't really know exactly how it works and how it functions.
And so I'm circuit clerk, and then we have the county clerk. So a lot of people get the two confused. So it's one word difference. So I get a lot of calls for Jessica's office. Jessica gets a lot of calls for my office. So I can understand where they would get confused because it's a very similar title.
Yeah.
But we do vastly different things.
I'm sure. I think when we were little, that was Kevin Campbell's dad. I think Dick Campbell was it forever. Yeah. So interesting. Yeah, and I couldn't have told you honestly what the difference was, other than one. Your office took care of all the court stuff.
Right.
So anything else to share about? You do have election coming up here in just a couple of weeks. You're the incumbent. You've got that place seems to run extremely smoothly and efficiently. You got a great staff, I know, behind you, and you talked about that and how important it is to retain all that. So, appreciate you coming on, and I know that I hope everybody listening goes out and gets out there and votes for you. And one thing, again, I know we've talked about this before, but in these local elections, it honestly doesn't matter if it's red or blue. I mean, it really has no bearing. It's more about what are you going to do? What have you done? And what are you going to do?
I always feel like it's the best person for the position, not the party.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
Especially local.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a little break. We're going to come back with Kari, and we're going to have one of Kari's family members join us too. All right, welcome back to the Mason Miller Show. Again, I'm Clay Miller, sitting in for Mason, and today we're joined with Kari Kingston, incumbent, running for the circuit clerk, Shelby County. And we're also joined now with Chrissy Grant, who's also running for county board and also happens to be Kari's cousin. How are you, Chrissy?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
So Chrissy, Kari, and I all went to school together, and in Shelbyville, class of 92. I may be a little biased, but probably one of the all-time greatest classes.
I think you're right.
There,
I'd agree.
Have you guys turned 50 yet?
I right before you.
So you were what?
I was 9-1.
Okay. And May. All right. So yeah, I hung on as long as possible, but it finally happened. So
Yeah.
It did.
It's I have very mixed feelings about it, but whatever.
I did too.
Here we are. So we talked with you, Kari, about the office and how it works and what you've done there. Chrissy, tell me why you want to wade into this. Tell us a little bit about yourself first. You live in Findlay, right?
We live south of Findlay.
I
have a Shelbyville address. We are in Okaw Valley School District. Kids graduated from there. We own a business in Findlay.
Husband, Gary Grant.
Yes, my husband's Gary.
And you have decided you're throwing your hat in the ring and going to, hopefully, if you're elected, join the county board.
Correct. So I am running for Shelby County Board, District 9, which encompasses Findlay, north of Findlay, parts of Shelbyville.
Out by Lithia.
So kind of a weird territorial thing, spread out a little bit. But I know most of the people in that area, just growing up around here. Back to your earlier question, why am I running? I had been given it some thought for a while, simply because, we live in a small community, and I heard that there would be some opportunities open up. Had talked to people in my community just about, concerns, whether it's a road or, some kind of local project that they were interested in. And I had several people encourage me to get involved, and my kids are now grown and have careers of their own, and I have more time to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's great that you're wanting to do it. I think that's what we need is, I'd like to say younger generation, but now that we're all 50, I don't know that we can say
Right.
we get away with that anymore.
I know.
But I think it's great that you're willing to jump in. I think you'll be wonderful on there. You're not afraid to speak up and give your opinion, but you also listen and listen to others. And, I think we'll be a good team player on there as well. So hopefully that works out and you get on there. It's hard to believe it's only a couple of weeks away now. And sometimes, some ways it seems like this campaign cycle's been a decade long. And then other ways it seems like it's hard to believe it's finally here. Yeah. So, so tell me a little bit about some of the things on the board currently that you're, just one or two things maybe that come to mind that you're really wanting to try to focus on and, sink your teeth into if you're fortunate enough to be elected.
So it's funny because watching issues with the county change over the last year, things have changed in priority, right? So we knew about the dive team. That concerned me.
Mm-hmm.
I think probably because my son does work for his career involves Lake Shelbyville.
Mm-hmm.
So he has been exposed to, tragedies on our lakes and accidents. And then growing up, my dad volunteered for the rescue squad and participated in some dive rescues. So that was like, wow, we can't have that happen.
Mm-hmm.
So carrying forward to our deputies. So I'm reading and understanding that we have a lot of turnover. So I'm like, why is this happening? What's the problem?
Right.
And it just continues, right? You turn around and we got another issue. We have another issue. So back to your question. Right now, I would say the most important thing that coming in as a new board member will be the budget, right? Because we can't run our county if we don't have the adequate money to be able to do that. And it seems like we're kind of at a grind there right now. So no matter who fills those seats, it's very evident that no matter what they do, it's going to be a challenge, right? So that's my most important thing. And to get the audit done, get a budget set so we know where we're going.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the two most important things.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. One thing I think that you mentioned about with the dive team and with our sheriff's office, and then Kari, we kind of touched on it just a little bit in passing with your offices. It's not everything, but it's a lot. It's continuity in these different, I guess you would say, offices. And the more people that we lose or that don't stay for whatever reason, that are good people that have done this for a long time.
They lose a lot of experience.
A lot of experience. And that's, it's impossible to replace that most times.
Absolutely.
Right.
So, and again, Kari, I know you mentioned this in your office, the tenure that you have in there. It's great that you have a newer person that is learning. I think that's wonderful if you can ideally kind of stack people so that, again, you don't get all the retirements at one time. Right. But being able to train and retain those folks, and protect them if they're good workers, which I know you go on and on about your staff.
Absolutely. Your staff is your biggest asset.
Right. Which to me as a citizen, private citizen, and that's important to me that these residents are provided a good working environment that makes them want to stay and
absolutely
and run all these offices that we take for granted. That
right.
Magically everything takes care of itself up there.
People didn't used to leave
the
courthouse.
No.
You went to work at the courthouse, and that's where you retired from.
Right.
It was a coveted position to try to get any office in the courthouse.
Yeah.
Well, those ladies that you mentioned earlier, I mean,
Yes.
they were there forever.
And they
you
all
know?
retired from their positions.
Right. And again,
I worked at the courthouse.
She
So I want
Oh,
to
really?
chime in with that. Yeah. So my first full-time job, I worked for the public defender's office. So down in the basement, I think it's still down in the basement.
Yes.
Right? So obviously that's an attorney that gets appointed to someone that couldn't afford
Right.
their own attorney, right? And then we would do guardian ad litem. So for minors, we would represent them. So I had the opportunity to work with that office, the sheriff's department, got to know Ruby Miller was the treasurer, then the county clerks,
and our grandmother worked at the sheriff's office.
So our grandma worked for the sheriff's office for almost 30 years. But back to what Kari said, that was like a huge deal to get a job at the
Right.
courthouse or for the county. Like it was a big deal. Yes. Now, like, people don't want to go to work there. What happened? It shouldn't be like that.
No.
yeah, I mean, again, it was decades long that people would go there, and it was a good, stable job as long as you worked hard and got good at what you did. You would be there again, like you said, for
Until you
life.
retired.
Yeah, it was one of the better jobs you could get in if you were going to stay local.
And I feel that that's the way the deputies used to be too.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it's funny because one of the things that which everybody in our class is going to laugh at this because I didn't honestly realize. My wife, obviously, she's in the same class as well as us, but I didn't realize that you guys were cousins. I just knew you guys were best friends forever. I mean, you guys were always together. But one of the earliest memories I have of you guys is at Frosty Heron's at a
Yes.
barbecue when we
Yes.
were really little,
Right.
and tons of people were out there. And Bob
Right.
Collins was the sheriff, and he was the deputy forever.
Right. And the sheriff's office, before they built the new jail, used to be right below where my office is at right now. So we would walk from Main Street School to the courthouse and go home with Grandma when she got off work because her office was in the courthouse. And that's when she worked for Bob Collins.
That's why you guys are so
Frosty.
tight with Frosty, because I just thought maybe
Frosty-
you guys were related.
No, Frosty was he was Santa every year.
Yeah. We
So,
figured that
yeah.
out after
Yeah.
a while, though.
It took a while.
Yeah.
but yeah.
We figured it out.
Till you realize that
Yeah, I'm
Santa
like, why
lives up
does-
on the highway. You might think he is with all the Christmas decorations he always has out every year. Yeah.
He does have both of our signs out right
Yes, he
now.
does.
Does he?
So Frosties.
His daughter reached out and was like, my dad. And he's actually, up until the last year, was my jury trial bailiff, he and Joanne.
Wow.
So, yeah, it went from my grandma to him working with me up
Yeah.
until the last few months. Yeah.
That's interesting. So it's a family business for
Right.
you guys,
Right.
working for the county.
Right.
So, how have you managed to retain all of your folks and keep your whole staff together? Because you haven't really had any
No.
turnover, right?
Number one, I think that my employees, number one, they love what they do, and they take pride in their work, and it's not something that they want to give up on.
Mm-hmm.
I think if it was maybe someone, because I'm not faulting anybody who did, but I think if maybe they had only worked there for a few years and maybe they found a position that offered more money, they might, with all the stuff that's going on, I can see why people.
You're probably too humble to say it, but I mean, I think you probably have a little bit to do with that too. I mean, they always say, I always feel like, your satisfaction is, do you feel appreciated every day, and who are the people that you work directly with, and who's the person that you report directly to? Right. And if those are good for the most part,
right.
people will stay.
And I'm never going to ask anybody to do anything that I wouldn't do myself if I wasn't already in the middle of doing something.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I mean, I think those results speak for themselves, and the fact that, again, how well your office functions and your staff
yes.
sticking with you.
Yeah, I can't say how much I appreciate it.
So, Chrissy, tell me, again, deciding to jump into this, have you? I know you've been attending all the meetings and following all this closely for at least a year or so. That I've seen just with you talking about it. Have you learned anything or been surprised by anything since the time you decided you would do this to the time now, or is it pretty much you knew what you were getting yourself into?
It's pretty much what I expected. Maybe even a little more disappointing than what I thought it was. I'm hoping that if I get on the board or whoever gets on the board, that we can regroup, treat each other with respect, set differences aside, and make the best decisions for the county, because it's sad, right? We live in a great place, one of the best places around. And to have that just kind of fall apart and
Bring back a level of professionalism.
Right. It doesn't need to be this way. Mm-hmm. So, and I think that probably resonates in my mind is like, it doesn't need to be like it is.
Yeah. Just from being outside looking in, Kari and I were laughing before you got here that, I don't have Facebook. I can't do it. Maybe if I retire at some point down the line, maybe I would. But just getting back to Shelby County being ran by Shelby County citizens and not influenced from the outside, but also trying to understand that people that are truly trying to do what is right, and you're not always going to agree with them, but having a civil conversation and a respectful one, like you said, and then agreeing to disagree is okay. But I think the fundamental things that people are looking for are what you said. I mean, we want our sheriff's office to be strong and experienced and protect everybody, and you got to have them feel good about what they're doing, and you got to have a board that is going to support and make sure people are paid on time, and make sure that
how about letting them do the jobs that they're supposed to be doing?
Exactly.
Right? Protecting our citizens.
Protect the people who are protecting us.
Well, and I think one thing, when we did this back during the primaries with some of the other candidates, one thing that came up a lot was, and I'm a firm believer in, it doesn't matter what business you're in, but you have to hire people and let them do their job. And obviously, if they report to you, then you have to oversee that, but you have to let them run there and do their job. Right. And whether it be a sheriff or anyone else that is in charge of people, if they're not doing it the way the board sees fit, then bring it in and address that.
Have a conversation.
Yeah, but otherwise, you got to let them run their department until you don't feel like they do it properly.
Right.
I think the micromanaging stuff, and I think it's always a slippery slope, and it was the same way whether you're on a school board or anything else. Overstepping, you have to let your administrators administrate and not be working directly with teachers. That's not your area. That's not your expertise. Right. And it's the same way here. Right. So hopefully it gets back to that. But Kari, it seems like you've done a good job of being able to work with, no matter who the state's attorney is. What's your secret for being able to just keep things rolling and keep things operating no matter who's in charge?
It's wonderful now. I mean, and normally we don't have that issue. I've had, and it doesn't matter. It didn't matter what party that particular state's attorney was. We worked together because we're both trying to do the same job. We're both trying to do what's best for the citizens of our county. Mm-hmm. So it's just, it's not really anything that, to me, it's a no-brainer. You have to work together. You have to work with the police officers. They're the ones they're going to help you out with your job. So if you got questions about something, you can ask them. To me, it's just so much easier to work with people than against them.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. Chrissy, how excited is Gary for you to do this?
Well, he's been helping me put up signs.
Yeah.
At first, he was reluctant. I think he was concerned that putting myself out there, they would go, let me say there would be certain people that would perhaps maybe take jabs at my kids or, friends. And then he kind of got over that.
Yeah.
When he realized, when I presented him with, I'm like, read this, watch this board meeting, listen to the dialogue. And that's when he sat back and was like, okay, you're good.
Yeah, that dialogue, again, I've only been to a couple of meetings, but, I've seen clips and the meetings that have been to it. I'm not sure that a lot of that dialogue would be allowed on a junior high playground today.
Right.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Maybe back when we were all in junior high, it might have been on the playground, but not today. So, Kari, you've shared with us a lot about all the experience, the decades you have in the circuit clerk's office and as circuit clerk. Chrissy, you want to share a little bit about your experience, as a businesswoman and owner, and then also kind of what you would bring to the table?
Sure. So just a little bit of background. For me, I spent, in addition to mentioning that I worked at the courthouse, I worked 12 years at Shelby Electric Cooperative, so a local co-op. We have owned a business in Findlay, Illinois for 16 years. So that's the R&K One Stop. And then we also owned Telwyn Steakhouse for 7 years, and we sold that last year to my cousin. Right now, I'm employed for a software company. I'm a project manager and a product manager. So I manage stuff. I think...
So you're familiar with meeting goals and deadlines.
Right.
And so
so
on and so forth.
The most important thing about my job is I make decisions every day that impact some pretty influential ag companies across the United States. So I'm having to decide, what is the most important thing that I need to do today? Is it urgent? So, and problem solving skills. I use those every day. And then just running a business in general, obviously I'm acquainted with federal requirements and state requirements, having employees, the payroll, the rules that go along with that. So I feel like I'm qualified in those areas to contribute to the Shelby County Board. Am I an expert at that? No, but I don't think anybody is.
Yeah.
So, and just working hard. I mean, I've had a job since I was 13. I started washing dishes
She's
at Guy's
totally
Stack.
type A. Totally type A.
I had a paper out. I even delivered papers on the street that you lived on. You live on, right? So I haven't stopped working since then. And it's because I've had to, right? I did not grow up having the opportunity to have things just handed to me. So I've always had to work hard.
Yeah.
And I think I carry that forward in no matter what I do. And I'm confident that if I am elected for the county board, that my hard work will be very apparent there also.
Yeah, I think your business ownership, your entrepreneurial skills, and then also, kind of what you do now, and just the balancing act between having a business and then also working for another company. You said product management, project management. That's usually typically, at least in my world, those are long tails and a lot of details that you have to be on top of and make big decisions, as you mentioned. So, yeah, I'm excited. Hopefully you get that opportunity to bring those skills to the board. And then kind of the last thing, I think it is good that good people are willing, like yourselves, are willing to step up and be out there. And they do. I mean, people will take jabs and that kind of thing, but for the most part, I think you have to, take it for what it is. I think somebody showed me something at one time. I got pulled into it a little bit, and it just made me laugh because I just thought,
You just have to consider the source.
Who cares? I mean, who cares?
Right.
It's comical, and you make yourself look even worse than.
Right.
I have nothing to gain other than giving my kids and my hopefully future grandkids a great place to continue to live. Both of my kids graduated from Milliken. They're back home. They both have great jobs. They grew up in great neighborhoods with great people, and they wanted to come back here.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes me feel good, but I want us to also give them those opportunities to raise their family here.
That we had.
So, right. I mean, it's not because the county board pays well or because, it's just because I want to contribute.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to complain about something, then my feeling is then do something about it.
No, I agree.
And I think that's where I was at with it.
I'd like to see the county board vote to not be paid, period. School board's not paid. A lot of these other positions aren't paid, and it's so minimal. Like, just say I'll just donate it back to something that's going to be actually worthwhile, or donate it to a cause, because again, like you said, nobody's doing that that I know of. Any of the folks that I'm voting for, that has nothing to do with it. In fact, they're sacrificing an awful lot. Again, you're at a point in your life, you can kind of do whatever you want to do at this point. Your kids are raised, we're kind of in the same boat. So people are stepping up to do this because they genuinely want to make sure it's preserved for their kids and then one day for their grandkids. So
and that this is our home.
Yeah. And it is. I work with people that don't live around here, and a lot of them live down south in Alabama area, and I always tell them this is a little slice of God's country up here in Illinois. Don't think we're all, because they all think Chicago. I'm like, no, this is different. We're a lot closer to Alabama than we are Chicago.
Absolutely.
It's funny you say God's country, because my son and his best friend call home God's country.
Oh yeah, yeah,
like literally.
Yep.
And then that song came out shortly after that. So it's kind of funny.
Well, I want to thank you guys both for coming in. Again, Chrissy Grant running for the county board. Please get out and vote. And Kari Kingston running for re-election for circuit clerk for Shelby County. Both, I think Chrissy will be outstanding. 100% support her. And Kari has been outstanding. And I think it's so important that we keep her tenure and her expertise and her the efficiency she runs that office with, and more importantly, we keep all that staff together that is right there working with her. So please get out and consider voting for both of them on election day. So that's all I have. Thank you guys both for coming in.
Thank you very much, Clay.
And that's it for this edition of the Mason Miller Show. We'll see you next time.